Welcome back to an episode of the Entry for One podcast. As always, I'm your host, Josue Hernandez. And on this week's episode, we're going to be reviewing and discussing Roma, written and directed by Alfonso Cuarón. On this week's episode, we're joined by Chandler Treyon.
Hey.
And we're also joined by David Orozco.
Yo.
Roma, directed, written, co-edited, and shot by Alfonso Cuarón. He's known for Gravity, Children of Men, and Y Tu Mama También. This movie stars Yalitza Aparicio as Cleo, Marina de Tavarea as Señora Sofía, Diego Cortina Utre as Toño, Carlos Peralta as Paco. Roma, a story that chronicles a year in the life of a middle-class family's maid in Mexico City in the early 1970s, which is loosely based on Alfonso Cuarón's upbringing in the Roma suburb of Mexico City, which is called Colonia Roma. We'll get right into the review. What'd you think, Chandler?
I thought it was overhyped, honestly. I don't think it's as good as everyone's saying it is. Sorry. I just don't. Oh man, it's so slow. Like an hour in, I was wondering if it was ever gonna get good, and I enjoyed it in the end. But I don't think it's as amazing as everyone says it is.
Okay. Is there something that you, particularly liked about it? Maybe
the cinematography is really good. I like a lot of the shots. It felt really artsy at times. Like I didn't see a reason for the things that he was doing, but it looked pretty. I don't know. There was a lot of repeated imagery that made me feel like I'd have to go back and watch it. It almost felt like I was watching an Italian neo-realist film where like I felt like I had to get the meaning of a scene where there probably wasn't any. I don't know.
Remind me of the black girl from.
Yeah.
What'd you think, David?
Oh, I liked it, but Chandler's says it's slow, and I agree, and I don't mean that in I was bored watching it, because every scene I was just taking it in. It was just so nice to watch. But towards the end, I was just kind of left a little underwhelmed in terms of plot. But overall, it was enjoyable to watch, and I could see myself watching it again.
Yeah, this movie's story is interesting because as far as, I guess, spoilers goes, there's not a whole lot to spoil. But
yeah,
there's barely any story.
Yeah, in a way, this story is everything leading up into how Cleo is established as a lifelong member of their family. So it's kind of not your traditional drama, whereas it's a specific beginning, middle, and end, whereas it just kind of ends the way it starts. But I think it kind of starts her incorporation more into the family rather than just being a caregiver and a caretaker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the first hour of the movie, it felt like I was just watching a nanny cam. Like it was just me watching a lady take care of a kid for an hour, and I was like, when is this gonna pick up?
I will say this, that I really like the set design. I thought they really nailed getting that urban Mexico feeling.
I will say, I watched this a second time before we did this episode, and without sounding the least pretentious as possible, it definitely feels very differently watching this movie in a theater than it was kind of watching it at home. Because I really enjoyed this movie. I think on a technical aspect, it's amazing. From the editing to the sound design, and then of course the cinematography was really well done. And what's funny about all the technical aspects is that along with Alfonso Cuarón writing and directing this movie, he also co-edited and shot it. So he flexed a lot on a lot of directors out there right now. But
he flexed in the credits.
Yeah.
His name lingered for a whole minute after everyone else's had gone away in the intro.
Yeah, he outdid himself on this one. But I thought Yalitza Aparicio, who plays Cleo, gave an amazing performance as her. Along with the rest of the cast. For me, personally, it's the best movie I've seen this year, and I'll probably end up staying as that. But with that being said, it's definitely not a movie for everyone. Although I would like for as many people to see this movie. It's a movie you have to like really be patient with. But yeah, like I said, it really feels different seeing this movie at home versus theaters. And I don't know if that's maybe because I've already seen the movie and I kind of know what's gonna happen, but specifically the sound design, I mean, there's no soundtrack or specific score to this movie other than kind of ambient sounds that happen throughout the movie, like a TV playing or a
and
random
that garbage marching band that came through twice in the movie.
Oh yeah.
yeah, the marching band and
They sounded awful.
The birds in the house.
yeah, the birds, the dogs, the guy yelling outside the house. It all
So many
contributes to
dogs.
kind of the it contributes to the world you're kind of brought into. I don't know if it adds anything for you guys or if y'all knew about this, but like I mentioned, this story is about Alfonso Cuarón growing up in the 70s and then obviously focusing specifically on the maid of his household, which is Cleo, or in real life is her name is Libo.
I could definitely get that vibe because I remember watching it. I was like, this director thinks he's Pepe. Like he's the youngest kid for sure because he tries to make the youngest kid seem like the most interesting out of all of them, and the other ones just kind of fight about stupid shit all the time.
Mm-hmm. And he's like so
I was,
patient.
Yeah, I was interested in Pepe the
he
whole
was an
time because he was like talking about how he's reincarnated at least twice in the movie. Like at one point he's like, yeah, in my old life I was a fighter pilot, but it was scary and I hated it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what?
Yeah, and then he mentions he was a
sea
sailor.
captain.
Yeah.
And his boat flipped and he couldn't swim.
Yeah, I was like, this director definitely is trying to make him as a kid look way better than the other kids right now.
No, when I finished the movie, I thought the exact same thing. I thought he was Pepe because I went into this movie knowing this movie was about him. So I was kind of trying to figure out who he made the kid to be in this movie.
Yeah.
But I recently found out that he was actually played by Carlos Peralta, who plays Paco. So Paco in this movie is Alfonso Cuarón. He's the older kid with the bucket hairstyle.
Yeah.
The bullhead.
Yeah.
Is he the one that cried? Is he the one that cried at the table near the end of the movie, or is he the one that's kind of just silent?
He was the one that was crying at the table.
Yeah. He's the guy, one of the kids that gets stung by, I'm assuming, no, he gets sunburned, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So he's one of the little shit kids.
Close is this to like Alfonso Cuarón's actual life? Like, did the maid actually get pregnant?
No, I think it's loosely based on
Will that happen?
right?
I know it's loosely based, and I know a lot is incorporated into this story, but I did not see whether she was actually pregnant and kind of, has a stillborn baby, which is an intense scene. But I believe it's not loosely because I think it has a lot of his growing up in this storyline, but I don't know how much of Cleo's specifically or Libo story is in this movie.
Part of me wishes that this movie was in color, honestly.
Yes.
Because I was like, okay, it's really pretty in black and white, but there are scenes that would have been way better in color.
Yeah, like I really hope there's a color version eventually, just because some scenes were so like just beautiful to look at, and it was in black and white.
Yeah, I think it was shot in black and white, so I don't know if they're gonna.
Yeah, it was shot on a Alexa 65, which is a digital camera, but I believe they put a black and white sensor on it. So
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I think the black and white obviously added to the 70s element aspect to it, obviously. And but
no knock on the black and white.
No, definitely. And I agree. I mean, I would appreciate a color version of this. I don't know. It's interesting. I guess we're so used to seeing things in color. But
there were just sceneries where like it was wide and there was a lot of stuff going on, and I was like, I want to know what the color of these things are, because in black and white it just looks muddy and I don't know, like I can't distinguish what's what. Yeah, that's another thing I had with this movie, is that it felt like a lot of the times the things in the background that were going on were way more interesting than what was going on in the foreground. Like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of dimension. No, there's a lot of dimension to his shots. I mean, whether it's the scene where there's a fire happening, there's a lot of layers to it. or when they're in the city. I think it's just throughout the film. There's a lot of dimension to his shots.
There's one that stuck out to me that I can remember at least, where she's trying to find Fermin, and she gets off the bus and she's like walking over the planks like through the mud and shit. And in the background there's a guy getting shot out of a cannon.
Yeah.
But like you're supposed to be focusing on her, but it's like, no, I want to watch this dude jump out of a cannon.
Yeah, that scene. Yeah, it's one of the biggest scenes that is gets talked about.
Yeah.
Which for obvious reasons, there's a lot happening in that shot.
This movie is so full of like symbolism, and like it's got so much foreshadowing in it. It's like nuts. Like you could probably guess a lot of the end elements of the film from the beginning, and it's really, I don't know.
I mean, shot that sticks out to me for some reason. I don't know if it stuck out to y'all. Was when she was going downstairs and that. What was the context for her going to that German, like, American place again? It was like the friends of the wife.
The German American.
Yes, I believe it was her aunt or their uncle, because they're cousins.
Oh, the hacienda or whatever.
And they were celebrating New Year's there.
Where there were all those like dogs mounted on the walls.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what?
Actually, this whole movie.
I guess we'll get into the spoiler portion, I guess, for this movie. Although it's kind of weird as far as spoilers go for this movie, but I guess there is in a way. But yeah, I mean, I guess any last thoughts before that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a very beautiful movie. I liked the dialogue. I liked the set design. And just for that alone, I'd rewatch it maybe. But, I mean, to go in there expecting like a very big, thick plot, it was kind of devoid of that.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. I appreciate this movie, and I like this movie a lot, and everybody should watch it. But I still say Ballad of Buster Scruggs is my 2018 movie.
Okay.
Yes, big fat retweet. I agree.
I don't think it's the best movie of 2018. I think that it deserves the award that it's getting, but I still think that it's overhyped.
Okay. Well, you know how I feel. I really like this movie. Watch this instead of Bird Box. Thank you for listening.
Still watch Bird Box, but don't believe the hype.
Yeah, check this movie out if you haven't watched it. It's really well done. Like I said, it's my favorite this year. We're not going to be transitioning to the spoiler section. Where did we finish off? We were talking about the dogs.
Oh yeah, I was just to mention that scene where she goes down, where I guess all the servants are having their own New Year's.
Yeah,
there's like shot of the dog going up the stairs while they were going down.
And there's some ducks having sex at the bottom of the stairs.
That's the shot that sticks out to me more so than the canon one.
Yeah, that one too. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, that scene was interesting because I mean, there's a lot that happens as far as you see the division in Mexico, whereas the upper class tends to be white Mexicans, right? And workers or housemaids or just traditional manual labor workers are darker skinned, primarily native Mexican people. Yeah, indigenous people. Yeah. And then obviously when you have their party in the main house, and then they ended up going downstairs to have their own party. It's just interesting to kind of see the differences on the way they're kind of celebrating as well. More traditional.
Yeah, and I like the touch of I don't know if they were speaking Maya or Nahua, but I like that she like spoke like that indigenous language with her friend too. I just thought that was a cool touch to really cement the differences between her and the family.
Oh yeah, they do that early on, right?
Yeah, Mixteco.
Yeah, and then the youngest one is like, "Don't talk like that. I don't understand you when you're talking like that."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, you know what language it was supposed to be?
It says it's Mixteco.
Oh, Mixteco.
Yeah, it's the first time I ever actually hear someone speaking that language. I've always, just being, I guess, born in the States as well doesn't help, but I've always just heard Spanish as the language that I've spoken in other than English. So it was very interesting to hear native people speak in the Mixteco language. And the way it was done in the movie was kind of cool. You had the translation in the traditional way, and then the Mixteco language was bracketed off to kind of distinct the differences between the two.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch too, because that way, if you don't know Spanish, you can still understand at least that they're speaking a different language. Because I was watching this with my girlfriend who was white,
Yeah.
and that was a nice touch so she could know that too.
One of the most interesting scenes. I mean, I guess we'll just go in chronological. Actually, I wanted to talk about how Yalitza got casted for this movie, which is kind of funny or interesting. She had actually accompanied her pregnant sister to the casting call, but when her sister ended up getting cold feet, Yalitza took her place for that casting call, and she ended up getting the spot, which was kind of interesting.
Oh, well, so she was meant to play this role.
Yeah, she had no prior acting experience before this, so she's a non-actor. She was actually a teacher before this.
Really?
But I think after this, her career might take off. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, for it being
Her
unexpected,
career.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of crazy for something like this, for someone who not a day in their life would think that I might be nominated for an Oscar, is kind of nuts to think about. But
hopefully she doesn't get typecast as a Hispanic maid for the rest of her life.
Yeah, that
Hispanic maid.
Dude, the earthquake scene, like that scene was such heavy foreshadowing. It's like mind-boggling how he could fit that in and like not expect anyone to think that it's kind of corny. Now that I think about it. I think it's corny. I don't know.
Really?
In hindsight, I guess it was pretty foreshadowing.
Yeah, because she literally goes. She's literally looking at like the babies, and she overhears a conversation about a little girl that's just had her baby sister born, and they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be a girl," and she's like, "Oh, I like girls." Like, kind of just her face, the way she's looking at her. I'm like, "Okay, baby's gonna be a girl. Got it." And then an earthquake happens. I don't know if that's like common in Mexico, but an earthquake happens.
Distrito Federal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Well, the earthquake happens, and they're like, grab the babies, and they're running out, and you see like a bunch of rubble fall on top of a baby's, like it's like one of those incubator cases. Like it's not like it was born too early. And at first it's like, oh shit, that baby got crushed. But then you look, and it's just kind of like there's rubble on top of the baby, and the baby's fine. So I was like, okay, something stressful is gonna happen to her, but her baby will be fine, which did not, and was not the case.
Yeah, I'd want to rewatch the movie just to catch all that symbolism again, because it did seem like there was like a lot of symbolism I was just kind of like missing.
Yeah, the main two ones are the reoccurring airplane flying over the head,
and dogs,
the dogs, and then the astronaut kid in two specific scenes.
Yeah. And the movie, there was an astronaut movie too at some point, right?
Yes, there was.
Yeah.
Yes, that's when they go to the cinema after running into their father, which is an estranged father who's cheating on his wife. Which at first I thought he might have gotten like deployed, as far as
I knew that dude.
No. Let me as far as when she was crying, so. She tells the kids her dad's gonna go to Quebec, so Canada, for some testing. He's gonna be doing some work because he's a doctor. And then we hear her crying, so I'm like, okay, something went wrong. I don't know if he maybe died or something, right?
I knew something was wrong when he left the second time, because the way she like hugged him from behind and he looked super fucking irritated. And then like she tried to kiss him, and he kind of just brushed her off after kissing her. Like I was like, oh, he's leaving for personal reasons.
I didn't think that. I mean, I thought she was just gonna. I mean, I thought she just really loved him, and for him to leave again, kind of hard on her.
All the cigarettes, how much he'd been smoking in his car on the trip to like back home. Like he was clearly like not happy.
Yeah, and then just the way he treated Pepe that one time, he was like Pepe stayed there just to say how like bye to him. He was like, oh, hi Pepe.
He was like, bye.
Bye.
When we first get introduced to him, it's kind of a cool sequence. It kind of focuses on all the details in his cars, inside his car, and how he has to kind of finesse the car into this narrow garage that they have in their house.
Yeah, the car was really a big part of symbolism for their relationship. Like the whole time they have that car that's too big for their driveway, it's like they're trying to force the relationship to work. And then when she finally decides that it's over, she gets a smaller car that fits better into the driveway.
What's funny about that is, did you think when she drives the first car into the garage and kind of just runs into the wall and everything?
That's not her first accident.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. She crashed. She literally scrapes the car between two trucks in the middle of the road, and then gets to the hospital, and there's like a big strip of metal hanging off the side.
I was so surprised when that happened.
It's like a PVC pipe or something. It looks like a PVC pipe.
Yeah, like are we not gonna talk about that? Like it was just never addressed again.
And like it's just it's like a whatever. Because maybe she's like, you know what, fuck it. He's cheating on me. I could care less about his car.
Yeah, I mean, driving in drunk, hitting the pillar in your home, definitely a whatever.
Yeah, like without thinking about it at first, I was like, oh, she's just a bad driver because she's always having that Mexican guy drive them around.
Yeah, that's what I assumed at first, especially since that first time she scratched in between them.
But when she got the smaller car, I was like, oh, okay.
She just drives it in perfectly fine.
Yeah, she's done trying to make the relationship work. That's why it's so fucking easy for her to park now.
Man, and that husband was such a scumbag. Like when they were at the hospital and he's like, oh, I'd go in, but the doctor won't let me. And it's like, no, you can come in. Like you're good.
And then he's like, oh, I have another appointment. It's like, all right.
Yeah. When I watched that, I was like, oh shit. Wait, is he the father? Like I didn't know if maybe she lied like during her initial examination that she'd only been with one man. Like if the baby was gonna come out white or some shit.
Oh my god.
But that didn't happen, so I was disappointed.
That'd be a really big plot twist.
Right before that, it was pretty crazy to see like all the pregnant women outside waiting to give birth. Just because due to the student protests that happened and the government kind of shooting at all the kids, there was a lot happening, you know.
Stressful situation.
A bunch of bodies getting accepted into the hospital while you still have these women that are needing to give birth and they're just outside kind of walking slowly, moaning and groaning. It was pretty intense just pretty intense.
That whole sequence was terrible to watch.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but...
the car.
Yeah.
I thought she was going to give birth there. I was like, oh, God, no.
Yeah, I thought she was going to give birth in there as well.
There were some weird things that I thought were going to be significant that never were. Like, when she had her initial examination, the nurse that, like, worked on her had, like, fucked up eyes. And I was like, oh, is this...
Yeah, one of them, I think she might have been blinded.
Yeah, her left eye was, like, totally dead.
Yeah, I didn't see that till the second time I watched it, which was... I just never saw it on the first viewing.
I didn't even notice that either.
Yeah, I guess it's not important. So,
but I don't know about you guys, but when she has her stillborn baby, man, that scene really hit.
Oh,
yeah, it reminded me of Frida. If you've seen the scene from Frida where she loses her baby,
I've seen it, and I think I remember that scene, but it's been quite a while.
Yeah, I've seen the movie. I just can't recall that scene.
It's pretty painful.
Yeah, it was just so tough to see happen just because you see how unselfish she is, how she's willing to just take care of these children and sacrifice her own being for their well-being. And once you find out she might be pregnant and she's just kind of excited to have her own life and her own child, once she has the stillborn baby, it's just kind of it just wrecks you. It just hits you.
Yeah, I was kind of happy for her though, like in a weird fucked up way.
Wait,
I was like,
I want to hear you explain this.
Well, because like Fermin, like every time you see Fermin after she says that she's pregnant, he's a fucking asshole, and like he literally pulls a gun on her at one point, and like she's clearly not happy with her situation. Especially knowing that she would have to raise her own kid plus all these other fucking kids that she has to handle. And then even at the end of the movie, she's like, I didn't want the baby. So I was like, okay, well, it's a good thing that the baby was stillborn because, oh my God. Like,
I want to talk we'll talk about the ending and what she kind of means by, at least what I think she means by she didn't want the baby. But Yeah, Fermin is an interesting character because
Oh my god.
he's one of the only characters that I really had a problem with. It's not a major problem, but the
Really,
way he kind of devotes his life and his, you know, and
I'm sorry.
he's just so full of shit.
yeah, like
I can't stop laughing because every scene for me in it reminded me of Nacho Libre. Like he was like, I owe my life to martial arts. And, when he threatens her like he's in Nacho Libre. He's like, don't come near me about the baby again. And then like, oh my god, like
I don't think he said it like that, but
he definitely did. He literally like said, don't you ever talk to me about a baby again, and then like swings the stick around and then screams in her face and then runs away like a ninja.
His accent just gets thicker.
as he says it.
I mean, I don't speak
Don't
Spanish.
you
So
ever talk to me about it?
I was doing more of like a Scarface.
Yeah, that was definitely
It's the wrong nationality, but yeah, like he was so like his character was just so stupid, and that whole scene where he's like doing karate in the room that they're in, like totally naked with his dick flopping around. I was like, dude, put some underwear on. Like you don't need to be all natural doing that shit.
yeah. I mean, the issue I have is how he owes his life to martial arts and it's made him a better person, but then he wants to threaten this girl that's having his child to killing her if she keeps saying that this is his child, and it just kind of goes against on what he says he's now versus what he used to
it's
be
a
in the past.
hypocrisy with Fermin.
Yeah.
Yeah, he literally helps kill a guy near the end of the movie. A gun, which is not a thing that you do if you're a martial artist.
Get that part. So like, why did he shoot that guy? Were they like a part of a gang or what?
They were part of a youth, like they were shooting protesters, so they thought they were helping the military. That's why you see them doing the karate or the kung fu in the
that was to help the
courtyard.
military.
Yeah, that's why they do the right face. Like you don't do that shit in kung fu. They don't tell you to right face and like line up and shit. Like
Okay, because
like they were counting in Japanese. No, yeah, it was a protester.
Okay, well, yeah, Fermin just seems so full of shit. Like after he left Cleo when she told him he had the baby. Like everything he did just seems so like what? Like that goes against everything you're supposed to know, and then that goofy scene where he threads to beat the shit out of her.
Yeah. He even acted like he was happy about the baby at first. He's like, "Oh, well, that's good, right?" When she says she's pregnant, and then he's like, "I have to use the bathroom," and then runs away.
Yeah, like he reminded me of the lady, what's her name? Sophia? Was the main wife's name Sophia?
Yeah, Sophia.
Yeah.
She reminded me of Sophia's husband in the same sense of like they're both just like full of shit, like act like they kind of care, and then they really don't. More so in the husband's case, because for me, she would totally beat her up.
Yeah, you even get a line from Sophia that she says,
women are always alone.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we're always alone, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only character I really had a problem with in this movie. I mean, I would have liked his character to, I guess, redeem himself at some point of this movie, but yeah, it's just contradicting on the way he says he now is versus how the way he just acts.
I wanted more Ramon, and I wanted more Professor Zovek.
Wait, what'd you say, Chen?
I wanted more Ramon, and I wanted more Professor Zovek. Those are the two characters I didn't get enough of. Because Ramon, when he walked into frame, oh fuck, this dude's scary. Like dude, he's
Ramon's
a big
an absolute
dude.
Unit.
Yeah. At first, I thought he was the wrestler in the movie, but then I saw Professor Zovek. I was like, oh no, that's Latin Lover. That's him. He's the Nacho Libre aspect of this movie that I needed.
Yeah. I need some more Thickums Ramon in my life.
He's like practicing with this band out in his underwear, and then he's like, "All right, let's go see my cousin." Oh fuck, let me put some pants on.
Yeah, I wish I saw.
You go to the kung fu thing, and like half of them don't have their pants on.
Yeah, I would have liked to see more Ramon, more of that side of just like Cleo's like life outside of the
city.
The city, just like more of her like friend connections in her own life. Just because it was interesting to see her interact with her friend Adela, and like her obviously Ramon, and then I would have liked to see Fermin one last time after the birth thing, just to see his disgusting
No, I was done with Fermin and his floppy, uncircumcised penis. I was so done.
Or something, but insofar as Fermin, I mean, I guess that was just his character was just full of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, after that, they decide to after she has the stillborn baby, they decide to go on vacation to Veracruz, I believe, just to kind of get away from everything. Sophia's going through the separation, and then Cleo's going. She just went through a stillborn. She lost her child, so kind of just want to get away from everything. What y'all think about that beach scene? Did y'all think the kids were gonna die, or did you kind of just say, there's no way they're gonna let these kids die?
I mean, after seeing that stillborn scene, anything was off the table, so I was very anxious. I was like, no, no.
I don't know.
No, and it just kept on panning.
The whole movie, it was so slow for me that I was begging for somebody or something bad to happen. And so when the kids went out to sea, I didn't expect anything to happen to them. But I was thinking, she just left Pepe on the beach, by himself. If anything's going to happen, it's going to be to Pepe. But no, he's fine. He's totally fine by himself, unlike all the other children.
Yeah, just that symbolism of the waves hitting her again and again, her just going through.
Yeah, and a lot of people talk about even the first shot we get in this movie, which is her cleaning the floor with water, kind of foreshadows kind of the end of this movie as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought of waves when I saw that. So I guess it is a full circle.
I was laughing when you mentioned them leaving for vacation because I remember, I think it might have been Paco. He was like, "Oh, are there any beaches in Veracruz?" And she's like, "Yeah, there's beaches. Let's go." And he's like, "The beaches in Veracruz are
dirty."
And I was like, "You didn't even know they existed 2 seconds ago."
I liked Paco's characterization. I like that he was kind of an asshole, in general, but then there'd be moments where you genuinely felt really bad for him, when he was crying at the table.
Is it Paco? What's the older one's name? Is that Tonio?
That's Tonio, I think.
Yeah.
I want to know. Yeah, Tonio. Tonio's definitely the oldest, and then Paco's the second oldest.
Yeah, Tonio was a major dick to to his brother the whole movie. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna go." He's like, "Yeah, me and my cousin, we're gonna go watch this movie." And Paco's like, "Oh, cool, can I go?" He's like, "No, that's not fair. If you get to go watch the movie."
Or when they're I believe they're on the roof playing the 2 cowboy game where they have 2 guns, and he's like, why do you always have to win? And he's like, well, why do you have to win? He's like, it's my game. He's like, well, I don't want to play the game. He's like, well, I didn't want you to play the game.
Yeah, Pepe sneaks up on him fair and square, shoots him in the back, and then he's like, you were supposed to die.
Yeah, I believe that was that was definitely Paco. But regardless, I
thought Pepe was on the roof because he's the youngest one, isn't he?
No, Pepe was on the roof. Paco and
Pepe. It's Paco and Pepe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I saw an interview with Paco, and he talks about how Cuarón wanted them to feel hatred to each other, the typical, you just never agree on a specific thing. And I guess it kind of shows in this movie how well it works.
Yeah, they're always fighting.
Yeah,
and then they're always teasing their sister Sophie about how she's gonna get fat or she's fat.
The mom does too.
Yeah.
The mom was like, "Don't give any to Sophia; she'll get fat."
Yeah, that's something my mom always says about all of my siblings. Just that brutal Mexican mom honesty.
Those kids were always fighting, and that damn dog was always shitting all over the fucking driveway.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast about this movie, and one of them talked about how the poops were protest poops.
From the dog? Yeah.
Yeah, from the dog.
Yeah.
So that's why it was happening so frequently.
I thought that the dog was supposed to symbolize Cleo for a while, because he's locked up and they never let him. And he literally doesn't ever see grass, so he has to shit on the fucking driveway. But then I was like, well, Cleo's not locked up, she's free. There's a little bit, they make a joke at the beginning that maybe Senora Sofia watches them, but besides that, they pretty much have freedom.
I believe they were talking about their grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Oh
no, sorry, their mother and then their aunts, because they were highlighting how they don't want her to waste light, So that's why they turn on the candle.
Oh,
And they talk
I
about the
thought they were
food.
saying. Gotcha.
Yeah, no, at first when I watched it, I was like, okay, they might be talking about Sophia, but yeah, they definitely talk about their mother and possibly their aunt as well, talking about how they never want to have the lights on and wasting electricity and things like that.
Yeah.
Which was kind of nice. It's kind of just funny to see them talk about it and giggle about.
I felt like
Yeah,
the
with that
whole
aspect.
political turmoil part of this movie was like very underdone and underwhelming. Like there were parts where they would mention it, like Adela's talking to Cleo and she's like, "Oh yeah, the government took your mom's land," and then Cleo's like, "Well, what can I do?" And she's like, "I don't know, see her," and then you never hear anything about it after that. And I was like, "What? Are they not gonna follow up on that?" I mean,
I
there's
know that.
parts, but
Yeah, they definitely don't follow up with it. You hear a second time when they're having their party in the basement, in the New Year's party, and she's talking to one of the housemates there, and she talks about, you know, that guy in the back right corner. Well, they just killed his son while trying to take his land or something like that.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what the fire. That's why the fire starts. It's hinted that the fire is started by people whose land was taken, and that's why the hacienda is there now.
What y'all think about that guy that was in the costume? Do you think it
The
symbolized
Krampus
something?
costume.
I have to rewatch it again before I make a statement like that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was Krampus, and I didn't. He was like scaring the children, and then he counts down the new year while everybody else is like doing. Well, not everybody else. You see mostly the housemaids, the guys that worked on the land, and the children putting out fire. But like for the most part, the white people weren't really doing anything. And so I thought he was just supposed to be like nonchalant about it, like everyone else was.
Yeah, because then he starts singing, and you know, it's not something you would expect to happen while there's a fire going on in the background.
Mm.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would really like to eventually. I'm sure there's some purpose to his for him being there and deciding to sing in the midst of a fire happening. And it's funny how the kids are kind of putting out the small fires. They're like,
Yeah.
I
They
can't believe
got
they
the
took the kids
pregnant
there at
maid.
all.
They got the pregnant maid like knee deep in the muddy water, like giving the bucket. He's just walking around with his stupid costume. I thought he was gonna light up because his costume was made out of like dry leaves and hay and shit, and he's in the middle of this forest fire.
All hands on deck. Like he couldn't take off his costume. The little kids were there. The pregnant maid was there.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty sure all those dog heads were gonna do it too.
those dog heads. It was just so funny. It was so random.
Weird.
It's like all these past pets that they used to have, and it's like, I think one of their names was Pirate.
Yeah, died in 1911.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I've always wondered if, like, I mean, I'm sure that scene was also meant to be comedic, but I wonder if scenes like that and like the scene with Fermin when he does his like karate thing after threatening her, if that was meant to be kind of comedic or if that was just supposed to be like straight up serious. Because I remember I kind of thought that Fermin scene was kind of goofy.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was supposed to be serious, which is why I laughed at it because I was like, this scene is just so bad. like that scenes like that are what made Nacho Libre funny.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it seems something like almost out of Nacho Libre.
Yeah, like Professor Zovek felt like he was out of Nacho Libre. Like he does that thing where he's like he puts his hands above his head and then kind of lifts one leg. I was asking before the podcast. I was asking Josue if he did it, and he said no. And I said I did, and it's not that hard. I don't know why they were struggling.
I love that scene. I like it. Was like it might not look like much, but if you try, you'll see it's a miracle.
Yeah, and Cleo does it no problem.
Yeah. I really like that scene. I think that was one of my favorite scenes amongst other good scenes in the movie, just because it seemed so like slice of life as just watching this
Yeah.
weird dude just do this pose and seeing all the bystanders try to do it as well.
Yeah, for me, it's the exact same way. I mean, this scene like stands out from the rest of its traditional in the city landscape. Once you're able to finally see kind of where Cleo's from, her barrio, right? And kind of the life outside the city, it definitely stood out. And then having Latin Lover there kind of added to the scene for sure.
Dude pulls a car with his teeth. You know what? This isn't important, but it made me laugh. Like the scene where they're shooting guns. I was like, they didn't have a single real gun among them. They're just shooting pop guns because they're shooting these like revolvers. One of them has like what looks like a 44 or a Schofield from like Red Dead Redemption 2, and she's firing it with no recoil whatsoever. It was like, where did the budget go here?
I didn't even notice it.
Yeah, I didn't look at that specifically, but
it just made me laugh.
It's funny when one of the he has none of the ladies are gonna shoot guns, and they're like, oh, I forgot who her name was, but they're like,
There was one lady.
yeah, she's like, no, she's shooting for us. She's like, oh, she doesn't count. She's a gringa. Like,
yeah, that was like the only scene you heard English in.
Yeah, yeah, the only scene you really heard English in.
Yeah.
Other than I think there might have been one. Oh, when they're in the movie theater, but that's just the movie playing in the background.
Mm.
I think they'll speak French there too.
Yeah, some of them are speaking French in the movie.
Yeah, but
I think the whole movie might have been French.
I really like the dialogue. Like it seemed just so like what people would actually say, like that gringa thing. Like I could see so many people I know in Mexico saying that.
Yeah, and
I think the way Pepe talked, I've like heard so many little Mexican kids like have that kind of whiny like intonation, like "oh, ¿qué quieres?" You know, like it just seems so like authentic almost.
Right. I think that's exactly what kind of contributed to how much I like this movie as well. It's just how familiar you are to these mannerisms and phrases you're used to hearing as you're growing up.
Yeah, like it made me want to go visit Mexico, which I'm doing tomorrow. So, like, it's really worked out. But yeah, like it just reminded me of the times I'd go. Like when they were playing the revolver game, it just reminded me of my abuelita's house in Yuriria, Guanajuato. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the set design, the dialogue was really spot on.
Yeah, I think it had like you said, a really well done screenplay, and yeah, I mean, this is the relatability of this film. I think definitely contributed to how much someone might even potentially like this movie. I mean, you can even be not completely Mexican and obviously really love this movie as it shows, but I think being Mexican and just being familiar with the dialogue these characters have between the two, I think definitely contributes to that.
Yeah, because I mean, just like not to shout you out, Chandler, but like for example, like there'd be some scenes where you just kind of take in like the cinematography, I guess, of just seeing the home as it is, and for example, like Chandler might see it and just see it as a Mexican home, but I mean, having visited Mexico and being in that urban area, that's how the homes are, where they're like a gate in like a wall, and then you go inside and there's like kind of like this weird complex inside that's kind of indoors but outside, and it's just nice to watch, honestly, in a movie where I feel like I never see landscapes like that or sights.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, for me, there's so much in this movie, from the abuelita to obviously the mother and her phrases, and then to the kids, of course, which obviously made it very easy to struck a tear chord in me. Yeah, definitely
like,
an emotional film for sure.
Connects to like your neural sensors right away if you know I guess like the dialogue or the mannerisms that'd be there. But that's why like when Chandler says it was like kind of boring, so like I could see that, because I mean, if you didn't really have that connection, it could kind of come off kind of slow, kind of like what's gonna happen.
Yeah, I was dying for something to happen. I was like, okay, this movie is pretty, but like nothing is happening. Like she's just watching the children. She's pregnant now. It doesn't seem like a big deal. They're kind of hinting towards a narrative with like the husband and the wife, but it doesn't really affect Cleo, so I don't care. I don't know.
That's I think it's like your mileage may vary depending on how familiar and how much you like care about this type of stuff.
Up until like the hour mark, I was still trying to figure out how the toy salesman was making his little toy. You know what I mean? When she leaves the theater, she's sitting at the stairs, and there's this little toy dancing next to her, and he makes it stop dancing, and I was like, how did he do that?
Yeah, he said no strings, so I was like, he had.
Yeah,
this man's a magician or something.
I was like, what the hell toy is that?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out exactly like you were.
I thought one of y'all would know.
No, I mean he just says he says shots and he just like falls over. He's like dead. And he's like, I really don't know how he was able to. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know I've seen certain toys to where there's still a string attached to it, but he places his hand exactly perfectly to where it won't touch the string.
Right. I thought maybe it was like a wire connected to a shoe, and like a coiled or some sort of wire, and he's just tapping his foot. I don't know. I could not figure it out. It was bothering me. Like it was distracting my attention away from her that whole scene.
And I think that's
a strongly worded email.
And I like we mentioned, I mean the sound editing in this movie, the world building, and kind of how immersive this movie is as far as putting you in this city, which is Mexico City, does a very well job, because I'm sure as David's familiar with, I mean, when you go to Mexico, it's very much like this. Not everywhere, but there's people grinding, trying to sell balloons. I mean, that's a very popular thing in Mexico.
Especially that balloon street.
Everybody on the street selling a fucking hammock. Everybody in the fucking street is selling a hammock, and they got the color you need. But if they don't, the dude down the street probably does. But nope, they're the same fucking colors. Everybody's got the same pipes shaped like dicks. Everybody's got the same booby pipes. Like it's always the same shit.
You gotta go to el mercado.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, that's just something I really appreciated about this movie. Is I'm sure, I mean, Cuarón was born there in the 70s, so I wouldn't know what it was like in the 70s. But even then, it very much still represents the way it is. Today. Exactly.
Yeah, like that's the thing. It's in the 70s, but it's still, some parts still look how Mexico would look today.
Yeah, and even from the way it looks to the way certain political climates are still, I mean, everything about it still kind of either sadly or in a good way reflects the way Mexico currently is right now.
Yeah, like student protests. Like there was that whole controversy a few years back with those missing student protesters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then my dad used to student protest when he went to school in Mexico. So, I mean, it was just so neat watching stuff like that where it was just like, if I didn't live through it, at least like my parents did in some capacity.
Yeah. You have to get a lot of the story through small talk dialogue. Like I remember at the beginning of the movie, I don't remember if it was, I think it might have been Pepe. He was telling everyone at the table, he's like, yeah, there was this kid throwing water balloons at cars, and he threw one at a military jeep or some shit. And the guy got out and shot him. And they were like, oh, is he okay? He's like, no, he shot him in the head. He's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that part was like, was that really what went down back in the
damn. There was the whole massacre later in the movie, so you have to assume it was probably true.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, to shoot a little boy in the face.
I mean,
unsanctioned jury execution.
Because like when I saw that, I was like, that couldn't have happened. But then later you see the scene with like all the protesters being beat the hell up by all the kung fu guys, because they like literally brought their sticks to go beat up the protesters.
Military militia.
Yeah, they had a name. I think they were called the Falcons or some shit. Let me look it up.
Yeah, and then right when they leave that furniture store and you have that girl laying on the ground with her boyfriend, I'm assuming.
That was my favorite.
Damn.
That scene was really good. The way that guy looked, like his dead body was just so like striking. His eyes were totally dead. Like he'd definitely been dead for more than a couple minutes.
Yeah, it looked like the iconic picture you'd get of a protest like that.
Oh yeah, like that protest that happened at that college. There's a picture of like a girl holding like this guy that got killed. I don't remember. It was famous in like the 70s. Yeah, the Hawks. They were called Los Halcones. They were implied to be a paramilitary randomly shooting at protesters.
Oh my god. I'm going to look up into see how much of this actually happened.
Yeah, I believe.
I'm very curious.
I want to say that protest in Mexico had happened in like
it was
68.
the Corpus Christi massacre.
Yeah, Corpus Christi. Yeah.
Yeah, 1971 in Mexico City. It was about the Mexican Dirty War. I don't know. I don't know anything about this.
Boy.
I believe it was with the party the PRI. Let me see here.
They were just enforcing el vota PRI.
I believe so, and it was anyone who opposed them would be obviously killed. I know that was a major thing, where if you oppose this political party, you would ultimately result in death for you.
Oh, jeez.
Um,
All right. Well, just because I don't live in Mexico in 1971.
But yeah, I mean, that's something they really highlight in this movie. I believe there was also an earthquake in Mexico. It was a pretty big earthquake, and that's kind of in this movie as well, as we can see. We get the student protests that result in death, and then we also obviously get the highlighting the inequality in wealth in Mexico between white Mexicans and native Mexicans.
Yeah, for sure.
Which obviously still is around in Mexico. It's not as bad, but it's still something that's definitely pronounced. I mean, in the entertainment world, all you really see in novelas and movies is traditionally white Mexicans. Yeah.
Features.
Mestizo people.
And even
Antonio
just like
Banderas.
Cleo's friends and like, I guess people she gathers outside of the family, they're all very much like indigenous looking or not that Anglo.
They were all intellectuals, is what it sounds like. Because she was a biochemist and her husband was a doctor of some sort. So it sounded like they were all like extremely intelligent, highly paid professionals.
I wonder how much money she made as a biochemist.
Yeah, I mean,
think
she wasn't working, so apparently none. But
yeah, because she says that she left us with nothing.
Yeah, she stopped working to take care of the children, despite the fact that Cleo was taking care of the children.
Okay, because when she said she was a biochemist, I was like, what?
Yeah.
What?
And then she mentions how she's gonna switch jobs, and she's like, "Well, how are you gonna make money?" And she's like, she just says this is something she's been wanting to do instead of just being a biochemist.
She got a job at like a printing press or editing firm or some shit like that. And she's like, "Oh well, I don't even like biochemistry."
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Then why do you have hundreds and thousands of books in your house about biochemistry? Like the dude takes all the bookshelves. Yeah, because he says, "I'm gonna take what's mine." So he takes the book. All the books are hers, so they're all over the place.
I wonder now if Boris was supposed to represent her, than like Cleo.
Oh, I don't know.
Like that shit on the floor, is that supposed to mean anything?
Maybe. That's what I thought the car represented her, but I guess that could also that would make sense. Yeah.
Like how he comes in, always complains about it.
He runs over the shit like 3 times.
I mean, to be fair, that was a lot of shit that was there. Like that was looking kind of
yeah, and we get that twice, and yeah,
I don't know. Just one day's accumulation. That was like a week's worth of dog poop.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, this movie happens over a period of 3 months, I believe, 3-4 months?
No. 9. She got pregnant and had the baby, so it had to
be 9 months. Yeah, it had to be 9 months. It had to be 9 months, yeah.
The fastest growing fetus.
Because I was thinking when she asked her, when she goes to the nurse for the first time, she's asking her, when's the last time you were sexually active? And it's, it's been the last 3 months, but then obviously she had the babies. Oh, yeah,
so
she had the baby.
6 months. So it would have been about 6 months.
Yeah. Because her water broke due to the protests happening outside. I guess just her.
The black and white made the water break look like blood, and it makes me think that the water that they used wasn't water, because I'm pretty sure water when it's in black and white doesn't just become black.
I wonder if the floor was a different color.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, maybe the floor was. The world may never know.
Because it looked like she was bleeding, and I was like, "Oh fuck, she got shot in the belly." Like I thought Fermin shot her, like 100%.
Buster Scruggs and Pano.
Well, I thought, yeah, for real. I thought he was like, "Well, this is my get rid of that baby," and just shot it.
Oh man, That would have been so rough.
No, imagine he didn't even shoot her. He just used the
stick.
The stick.
Yeah!
Wait, here's just and then you look down and she's bleeding.
Dude.
A pop like a balloon.
Oh no. That sound design.
Oh my gosh.
We got an actual balloon, popped it right next to the boom mic.
Oh my gosh.
But I guess, I mean, I wanted to talk about the ending where she's talking about how she didn't want the baby. And to me, when I first saw that scene and she was mentioning that, I was feeling like she felt guilty, and she was saying it in a way where she didn't want the baby enough, and then it resulted in her saying, I didn't want the baby, if that makes sense.
Like she felt guilty for having thoughts that she didn't want it, and then it died, so she...
Like she didn't try hard enough to have the baby. And then when she has a stillborn, it resulted in her feeling that way, that I didn't do enough to have this baby, so I didn't want the baby. But then I can also see where it just means literally she didn't want the baby.
Yeah, I interpret it as like kind of like how Chandler said that it was convenient that the baby died, because I mean she was not really in a position to like take care of that baby, it seemed. Yeah, and I at least thought like she really didn't want to have that baby, but it was just like, I'm sure in 1971 Mexico, like an abortion wasn't an option.
Yeah,
like,
I think
at all. So
yeah.
I just thought she felt guilty about like actually not wanting that baby, and the baby's death, as tragic as it was probably kind of like a convenience to her almost, of like, oh thank God, like I'm not gonna have to take care of this baby whose dad is just a complete deadbeat, and like she's not gonna have to be burdened down with that. And I thought maybe she felt bad that she felt that.
I felt that she cared about the baby at first, because like there's that scene where she doesn't want to drink, but then like the other lady is like, no, you have to fucking drink, like it's New Year's, and a lady accidentally knocks it out of her hand, and like it breaks all over the floor, and she kind of looks at it like, oh fuck, what am I doing?
Yeah, and
I think she wanted it at first, but then when she wanted for me to also want it, so she tried to find him, tried to get him to admit that it's his child, and when he did that, she was like, well fuck, now I don't want this baby, because I mean I'm on my own essentially.
Yeah, she always seemed very like insecure almost about the baby, like always kind of gauging what other people say when she tells him to, like Fermin or Sophia, where she thought like Sophia was gonna have a huge issue when she was pregnant, when Sophia was like, no, like you're good.
Yeah, she's like, you gonna fire me?
Yeah, but she never seemed like excited for the baby. Like I can't think of a scene where she was like telling the kids or like anybody with a smile like, oh I'm pregnant, like, oh I'm gonna name her blah 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 or something.
The only time I felt that she was excited was when she was overhearing a conversation between the little talking about how she was gonna have a baby sister.
Even then I thought she was still kind of just more worried about it.
Yeah,
I mean, I couldn't imagine even, a scenario like that. I would have no idea what it would feel like, but it's got to definitely feel like a mixed emotion as far as is this baby
like
good for my life, or do I have a good enough life to care for this child? I mean, but I would at least imagine, how much these kids that she has no blood relation to have impacted her life, how an actual child of hers could potentially, contribute to her life in a positive way.
Yeah, I mean, it was like a double-edged sword, because on one hand, it seemed like maybe that baby would give her like a new purpose, like outside of these people who aren't really her family, and who on like a dime can just switch on her, like how the mom would just all of a sudden be cruel to her and yell at her.
Yeah, and then a second later being
truly her.
I really thought this movie was gonna be like La Noire, but like so the whole time, like whenever she'd get mad, I was like, oh, here it comes, she's about to beat this lady ass. But no, she was just really stressed out about her marriage. So I was like, okay, I guess it makes sense.
More about this maid and her client coming together after both having loved ones that failed them time and time again.
Like she slapped that. Sophia slaps the shit out of Paco for listening in on the conversation. Instinctually hits him. She's like, "You're spying on me now," and then she smacks him.
Yeah, it's like, "Why you want to spy?"
Yeah, and then a second later, she's like apologizing to him.
Yeah,
and it was kind of yeah. She was
Sophia was just a flawed character.
Yeah, I mean,
Because I guess towards the end,
it happened
like, because
twice.
towards the beginning, when she was like doing her stuff, like I thought it was also Lenore from where she was just gonna be a completely cruel person, like very redeemable. But
I thought the
definitely
dad was gonna be.
husband trouble almost like humanizes her to where you almost understand where she's coming from when she slaps Puck. Where you're like, whoa, you're very emotionally distraught in a failing marriage, and
Yeah.
you at least acknowledge that what you did was wrong because you're apologizing like soon after.
Yeah, pretty much immediately.
Yeah, because when we first see that is, or one of the first times we see that is when Paco's leaving, and then he accidentally steps on poop, and the kid says, "Dad stepped on poop," and and then once he leaves in his car, Sophia walks up to Cleo and tells her, "I told you to clean up that poop," and then she says, "I'll take the child," and it's like, damn, like
Yeah, like chill. Like she didn't poop in your thing. That was Boras.
Now, I mean, I can't knock her for this, but the amount of times the dog went poop, I'm wondering if Cleo did that out of protest as well. Like, maybe sometimes you don't treat me well. I'm not going to always clean it for you. I mean, what do you
I
think?
don't know. I never got the impression that she felt like she was being mistreated. I mean, she seemed like she had a pretty good setup, and she wasn't ever like afraid to go see them. Like when she had to go talk to her, she's like, "Hey, can I talk to you?" Like it wasn't a big deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it
No,
just
exactly.
seems
Yeah.
more like
Go ahead.
Sophia can really control her emotions well.
Yeah, which I can't blame her, honestly.
Yeah, like there were like times where she seemed decent, and like for example, when she was gonna talk to her about the pregnancy, like she wasn't like yeah whatever, like dismissing her. She was like, oh yeah, just tell you can tell me later, just get the kids in here.
She brings her to her personal doctor.
Yeah, like I mean that's the thing. Like towards the end, that's why if I rewatched it, I'd pay more attention to Sophia, just because it also seems like this is almost partly her movie as well.
I was the opposite way. I was paying more attention at the beginning because I was like, "There's no fucking story here with Cleo. Like, there's nothing happening with her. Let's try to focus in on this family and see what's going on there."
Yeah, because I mean, with Sophia, like she just seems like such a, I guess I was gonna say deep character, but I guess a better word is just like
complex.
I mean, I guess deep character, yeah, just like where like she has her moments where she comes off like a huge like bitch, but I guess in the inside, like deep down, she's still good.
Yeah, she's still caring. She still has that motherly love inside her.
Yeah, she's still got that motherly love to apologize to Paco after slapping the shit out of him.
She knows that her husband's a fucking scumbag, but like when the guy at the party like drunkenly approaches her, she like tells him to back the fuck off.
Yeah, like she still has like morals, and I think like it's towards the end like where Cleo and her just kind of realize like they're kind of what they got.
Yeah.
And
I felt bad for Adela. It's like they're leaving Adela out on everything. Like, if anything, she seemed more likable to me than Cleo in there.
It's more of a Dylan Ramon. Like when that first shot where Ramon disappeared, like you said, Chandler, which is like, "Están comiendo esas tortas." I was like, oh my god,
they're about to be sexually harassed. Like,
yeah, at first, yeah, I thought they were just gonna be like, what are you ladies doing tonight or something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were actually dating at that point.
Yeah, and then Fermin's fucking weeaboo ass has like nunchucks in his back pocket, like he's gonna do some shit. Like I thought Cleo was gonna get raped in like the first 30 minutes of this movie because he had like these nunchucks and they're about to go in and he's like, "Oh, yeah, it's a nice day outside. Do you want to go to the park or somewhere where I can separate you from your friend?" And I was like, "Oh god, this is gonna get dark."
Yeah, she's like, "You don't like the movies?" He's like, "Yeah, but it's a nice day outside." And then she's like, "Okay, 1 second."
Hold up.
Give me a sec. And then her friend, Adela, she's like, she knows what she's gonna end up doing. And she's like, "I like playing in the dark. I prefer playing in the dark." And like, all right.
Yeah. She's like, "Tell me how it goes later."
She's just like, "All right, like, go off, young one."
Bro, that movie theater was ginormous, and nobody gave a shit what was on the screen. When everybody's just making out in the middle of the theater, like nobody cares.
Half of the theater is watching the movie, and then half is like making out or smoking.
I was watching the movie. That was a good movie.
Oh, that's a nice ass theater.
Yeah.
The Nazis are trying to shoot down those planes, and the dumbass on the gun was like cross-eyed because he hit him in the head.
Yeah.
And he couldn't
I
shoot
saw
the
that.
planes down. So the French rebels got away.
Yeah, I saw that.
And there were like weird sexual undertones, like the two pilots in the plane with the nun, like one kissed her on the cheek, and she kind of gave him a sly look. He's like, "Hey, me too." I honestly think that was a reference to his other film, Sin Nombre.
Well, that's not his movie, but
is that not?
No.
Oh no, sorry, not Sin Nombre. What is the one that he with the two boys and the woman that go on?
Y tu mamá también.
Yeah, Y tu
Harry
mamá
Potter.
también. I'm pretty sure that was a fucking reference to that movie. If you've seen that movie,
Don't
like
spoil it for me.
I'm not spoiling it, but like if you've seen that movie, like it's a story about two younger guys and an older woman like, on a road trip. So it's like that's a fucking reference if I've ever seen one.
You haven't seen Tu Mamá También, Josue?
I'm not, but I'm going to.
You
I
got
got
it
it
for
for
Christmas.
Christmas.
Yeah, you need to watch it.
I'm gonna
Is
probably
it in 4K?
no.
You
It's
should
in
also
1080.
watch Chandler. You should watch Los Crímenes del Padre Amaro. It's another movie with Bernal Garcia.
You'll have to send me the link.
Send you guys the link. Don't worry, I'll send you this.
Oh God! I googled Los Criminales and it came up with Los Criminales de Grindelwald.
Oh my gosh, that's
Next
great.
movie, Alfonso Cuarón.
That's hilarious.
The Spanish remake.
Oh my gosh,
Man,
worst movie of 2018.
he should have directed that movie. It would have turned out differently.
Yeah.
I don't think that movie could have been
He
any
directed
better.
Prisoner of Azkaban, so there's a start.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
written by J.K. Rowling, so there's only so much you can do with the subject matter.
He just have to invent his own characters.
And then Donald Trump was Grindelwald, and then oh god, that fucking I hate that lady, dude. I hate that lady.
I was gonna say Harry Potter in black and white might look cool. I'm not gonna lie.
Dude, that's
I mean,
like
that's
all
pretty
really
much
look
what the
lie.
last 4 movies were.
They're always so
Desaturated.
like a Holocaust documentary.
Decent. Fucking, it's gonna look like Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Schindler's List is such a funny movie, dude. We need to talk about that.
Funny movie. Oh God.
It's funny because like there's so much wrong about that movie. But
Thank you for listening to the Entry for One podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
There's just so much about that movie that's just wrong.
I haven't seen it in a very
watched
long
it.
time. It got released in 4K, so I might pick it up. See some Schindler's List in 4K.
You see it in 4K, you're gonna be able to see that little girl's red dress way better than you do.
I'm gonna see the.
It's gonna be easier to spot the Jews between the floorboards.
I'm gonna be able to notice the swastikas in between.
Oh my gosh.
Well, we finished this podcast talking about Grindelwald, so I think it's time to end this. Okay. Where can they find you guys on social media if you want to?
Hit up my Snapchat, your pal Dave, and then I have a Twitter, Rainy Godriguez.
You can find me on my Webkins.
You can find me on my TikTok.
Yeah, if you check out my Habbo Hotel account, you'll see me on. I guess just find me wherever at Ctreon 1457.
You can follow me on Twitter primarily at Video Josue, Video Josue. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Play Music. And you can follow us on Twitter or Instagram at Entry for One. Thank you for listening.